Hi, I'm Megan from Walk to Heal, and if you have a reactive, anxious, or fearful dog, the chances are you've already tried dog training. Maybe you have endlessly drilled place cues for when guests come round. Perhaps you've spent grueling hours on the pavement working on loose lead techniques to try and curb your dog's on-lead reactivity. Maybe you've spent countless hours in the park working on recall cues, only for your dog to bolt as soon as they see another dog. And I'm here to tell you that your dog not listening to you in those moments doesn't mean they have a training problem. It means they have an arousal problem. A lot of dog training that works with reward or impulse control or teaching cues and drills doesn't actually address the root of what's going on, which is arousal or a dysregulation in your dog's nervous system. So I'm here to talk to you about a method that I find to be totally transformative and powerful, yet incredibly simple to learn and apply. This is called TTouch, and it's a body-based intervention that uses a range of different tools to help a dog find safety and security in their body, thereby lowering arousal and curbing any kind of reactive behavior. I work with clients a lot with this, and so this video is meant to give you a bit of the context about TTouch, to teach you the TTouch theory of change, the different components of TTouch, so that way you feel informed and that way you know what might happen in a session if we are to work together. So TTouch is a set of tools that sits within my stepping stones method. TTouch is a great way to help a dog feel safe in their body by releasing chronic tension and helping them regulate their nervous system. It's a great way to help them feel safe in their relationships by engaging in a more consensual way of touching and handling a dog. And it helps them cultivate their resilience. And when I say resilience, what I mean is their ability to recover following stressful events. So what is TTouch? Well, it is a gentle, science-informed method that helps a dog release tension that might have accumulated in their body owing to chronic stress. It helps them find physical balance, so it actually can change how they hold themselves, how they carry themselves in the world, which can improve their confidence and sense of calm. And it helps them feel safer in their bodies, which is just going to be a huge driver of how they experience and interact with the world. There are different elements of TTouch, which we'll get into in a sec, but broadly they cover observation and feedback, body work, equipment, and movement exercises or groundwork. So the underlying theory of change with TTouch is that if we can support the body to be in better balance through these different elements, then we're going to have more balanced emotions. The dog is going to feel different. And it's the feeling that a dog is experiencing that is actually driving their behavior. So that's how we see behavior change. Behavior is an expression of an emotion that is felt in the body. So TTouch is really great because it addresses the root rather than pruning the tree, rather than being up at the symptom level the entire time. Now I'm going to give you a really simple exercise that you can do to kind of illustrate this point as to how our posture affects our feelings and our behaviors. So I want you to think of a difficult conversation that you've either had or might have upcoming. On a difficulty scale, I want you to think of between 1 and 3, nothing that's super activating. And while you imagine having that conversation, I want you to just shrug your shoulders a bit and maybe, grimace and squeeze your face and look away a bit. And you could even tuck your tail. And now think about that conversation. What does it feel like? it's probably scary or a bit affronting. Maybe you're unsure how to navigate it. Now, if you just take a deep breath, release some of that tension, and find more balance in your body. So if you're standing, that might look like your feet over your hips. And if you're sitting, you can have your hips over your shoulders. And that is postural alignment. You can open your chest a bit, maybe even smile. And now think about that conversation. Have you noticed any change? The chances are it's going to feel like a lot easier to be in that conversation and respond. So this is the kind of theory that Tellington TTouch works with, and why we believe that the interventions that are body-based can be really, really powerful. So why does it work, right? We've identified already that behavior lives in the body. So when I say that, when we think about it in the other direction, say we've got a dog who is afraid of people, and every time they see a person on a walk, they tuck their tail, right? And then they see a person and they tuck their tail and they tuck their tail. And that's probably more of a flight behavior if we think of fight flight. And that over time, that tail tuck gets habituated in their body, which means that they don't even necessarily need to see a person for those muscle groups and that connective tissue around their tail to be tucked. And that confirms to them that that feeling that they're experiencing when they see that person is scary. Same if we've got a dog who's more looks like they're on the offense and their coping strategies are more in the fight realm. If they're kind of tense and gnawing and growling and preparing for a bite, that's going to be felt in their body. And over time, they're going to accumulate tension in that area of their body. So when they're in this kind of tense place, their body ends up keeping them trapped in fight flight. And when they're trapped in fight flight, they're in a state of reaction. They're not actually able to make choices or relax or learn any kind of new skills. And this is why training can often fail, because when we're trying to get a dog to do something that we've rehearsed over and over again, but all of a sudden they're in a state of reaction, they're not making any choices about how they're behaving. So what Tellington TTouch does is it goes to those places of holding, we call it a holding pattern, and it introduces gentle, non-habitual movement to kind of bring the nervous system back online and show the nervous system where they're carrying tension. And that's what we do with the body work and the body wraps. We also use lead and handling equipment that supports the dog to walk more in balance, and something called the confidence course, which offers them like a new novel experience so the nervous system can learn, because if you're doing something new, you're not acting out of habit. So it's through these interventions that we can break the old patterns and support calm and confident behavior. Again, it's this idea that if we change the body, we change the experience, we change the behavior. So what do we actually do in a session? What does it look like? I touched a bit on the elements, and now I'm going to go a bit further into them. So we always start off with something that I think is one of the most important parts, and that's observation. There are different categories of observation, different questions that I might use. I use my eyes, I use my hands, and I try and understand what's going on for that dog. How are they carrying themselves? How are they responding to their environment? What communication signals are they giving? I think it's really important to use these observation tools so we can really easily understand what is going on for that dog in that moment. I come with a lot of knowledge about different things that we can try, and it's important to me that I stay present with that dog in front of me. Similarly for the caretaker, you spend every day with your dog, and it's really easy to say, oh, they do X because Y. When we're observing with judgment, we're not really creating any space for being present with that dog, and we might end up objectifying them in the process. And this is something that we want to do in collaboration with them. So it's really important that we use our observation tools to kind of keep our feet on the ground and be there with that dog. So we do some observation, and then we might think, okay, what are the different tools that might be useful? So we might do some body work to kind of release, if we've got that tail tuck, maybe we do something called tail work. And we just try and introduce some new and different movement to that area that's a bit stuck. We might want to use some equipment. So we might put a body wrap around the hindquarters to influence the hindquarters and help it find more balance and ease. We might take some of those tools and bring them into movement through handling techniques and equipment that allows a dog to walk in balance through the confidence course. And that might look like moving them really mindfully through a labyrinth or through some weaving around some cones. And we do that really slowly, again, so that way we can allow the nervous system to be like, okay, I'm walking a bit funny. I'm walking, maybe I'm putting all of my weight on my left paws. Maybe I want to redistribute that weight a bit. So when we're doing this with the dog, we then observe as we're going. We observe the feedback, like, well, how is the dog responding? Do I put a wrap on a dog and they're like, oh my God, or are they able to kind of move? Does it introduce a bit of fluidity? And then if something works, we might build on it. If something isn't working or isn't really showing anything, then we change. So it's a reflexive process that we go through with our dogs. So TTouch is really great because it is something that, because it addresses the root, right, it means it can work with dogs with a lot of behavioral issues, because the behaviors that people are often looking to change are usually coming from that underlying state of arousal or freeze, or the nervous system being flooded, or them in a state of chronic stress. So TTouches can help dogs who struggle to switch off. They're in that kind of hyperactive place or are too aroused to learn. TTouch is great for dogs who might be a bit skittish or reactive to noises, movements, sounds, people, struggle in new environments. TTouch is a beautiful, revolutionary intervention for dogs who pull or brace or struggle with arousal on the lead. I was a dog walker for 5.5 years, and I found Tellington TTouch, I want to say 6 months before I ended, and it just blew my mind. I was just like, where has this been all my life? So I think that is really a really totally different way of working with a dog on a lead that can really just transform things. It's good for dogs that are tense or sensitive or touch avoidant. So dogs that struggle with being pet, dogs that struggle that go to the groomers or the vets. It's really good to help change their association of what touch means. It's great that for dogs that are recovering from chronic stress or injury, it's a really great complement to a lot of veterinary interventions. Or dogs that are recovering from the kind of disruptive turmoil of being rehomed. And finally, it's really great for dogs who need help building trust and confidence. So that could be because the dog has had a poor start to life. Maybe they're a rescue. Maybe they've come from not great breeding conditions. Maybe they just have natural kind of like fearfulness around other humans. And TTouch is not even just great because of the outcome, right? We've done the thing and now we've got a more relaxed dog. It's great because of the process that we go through with a dog. It really helps build their trust, improves their bond. So some of the benefits of TTouch are better balance and posture, which influence sense of confidence and ability to manage stress. Therefore, reduced stress and anxiety, which helps influence behavior, eases the reactivity and the fear responses. It improves general comfort levels and well-being, which is something we all want for our dogs in their day-to-day life. It deepens the connection and trust and bond between the caretaker and the dog. And finally, it does increase their capacity to learn new skills. So if we want training as a goal, or you do have desires to do more standard dog training, but your dog is too aroused, this helps a dog prepare